Welcome back, everyone. Wherever you are, whatever time it may be, I hope y'all are doing well out there. I don't have any patterns for you or a theme on this upload. This is just people who finally decided to send in their experiences. A lot of them are strange. All of them are still flat out horrifying. And honestly, a couple of these left me feeling uneasy myself. And truthfully, that's saying a lot. As many of these encounters as I've narrated now, nothing should get to me at all. But there's really no getting used to this. I'm not going to ramble on here tonight. Before we get started, if you've had an encounter of your own and would like to share it here on the channel, be sure and reach out to me. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. My email address will be in the description below. Alright, legends. You know the deal. You know what you're here for. I'm going to deliver. Lock in, and let's begin. Everyone grab a drink. Lock your doors and windows. Hit the lights, and let's get started. Hello, Reels. I've told a few friends about this back when it happened, and they just laughed it off like I was trying to scare them. But I wasn't joking. I don't really care if people believe me or not. I just know what I saw that night out on the ice, and I haven't been the same since. This was in the winter of 2021, right after New Year's. I live in Shawano County up in northeastern Wisconsin, and I spend a lot of time ice fishing to get through the brutal winters. I've got a little flip-over shelter and a sled I drag out with my gear, and when I'm lucky, I get the whole lake to myself for hours at a time. I like the solitude. There's something peaceful about being out in the middle of a frozen lake. No noise but the wind and the creaks under the ice. This one night I was out on the west end of Shawano Lake, not too far from where the public launch is. But when I went out deeper than I usually go because the ice was good that week, and I figured I'd get away from the weekend crowd. I was set up maybe 300 yards offshore, facing out toward the tree line across the lake. I had my heater going. My radio was low, just jigging for walleye and watching the clouds roll in. The sun was setting behind me, and everything started turning that weird purplish blue that happens in deep winter. I got up to stretch and stepped outside the shelter for a smoke. I was maybe 15 feet away from the hut, just looking around, when I noticed something way off on the ice. It was toward the far tree line, too far to make out details. But I could tell it was big, like taller than a person big. It looked like it was slightly hunched forward. At first I thought it might be a bear, which was weird enough for January, but this thing wasn't moving like a bear or anything else. It was loping. That's the best word I can come up with. Not crawling, not walking upright, just gliding across the ice with ease. It was doing these long, lazy steps like it wasn't in any kind of rush, but still covering ground fast. I turned off my headlamp and just stood there trying to see what it was. And it stopped. It was maybe 100 yards away now, and it crouched down real low, like squatting, and just stared at me. I have no idea how to explain to you how this thing even knew that I was there. It was like something grabbed me. I felt it in my chest. Something inside me told me, don't move. My stomach dropped, and I got this ice-cold wave of fear that I haven't felt since I was a kid. It stayed like that for at least a minute, not shifting or moving. It was just graveyard still. It was locked onto me. I kept feeling more weird as time went on. I could make out the shape better now. It was weirdly wide across the chest and shoulders. The head looked too big for its body, and it looked like a dog or a wolf. I kept thinking this has to be a prank, but nothing about it felt staged. It didn't act like a person in a suit. It didn't have any hesitation or rhythm or nervous energy. It was just wrong all the way around. I backed toward my shelter and ducked inside. I killed the heater, killed the light, killed the radio, and sat there in the dark. I heard nothing for a while but silence, and I waited a long time. I don't even know how long. Finally, I unzipped the flap and peeked outside. It was still there, but it was closer, maybe 50 yards now. It was still in that same crouch position, head tilted just a little to one side. I can't describe how unnatural these things look. It's like a dog that had learned how to imitate a human, but just hadn't quite figured it all the way out yet. I didn't pack anything up. I left everything, gear, poles, heater, and walked backwards across the ice with my sled until I was close enough to the shore to run. I drove home in a full-out panic mode. I kept checking the rearview mirror the whole time like I was being followed. Who knows? Maybe I was. The next morning I went back with a friend. All my stuff was still there except for the bait bucket had been dumped out, and there were these long, drag-like marks across the snow where something had walked or slid around my shelter. I don't really know what else to tell you here, but I haven't ice fished again after that happened. I sold the hut and most of my gear that spring. People think I'm crazy. They wonder why I stopped. I used to love it. They say I must have been tired or drunk, or I just freaked myself out seeing shadows. I don't believe that. There's no way. I know what I saw. People tell me so much that I didn't see this that I almost start believing it myself. All I know is I was the only thing out there, until I wasn't. Anonymous. No matter how many people I hear talk about their encounters, it always sounds ridiculous when I try to explain my own out loud. Even my husband still doesn't like talking about this. And it's been over a year now. We both saw it, and I know I wasn't imagining anything. We live in a quiet part of Colorado Springs. It's kind of out past the main sprawl where there are still open patches of woods between the neighborhoods. Our street backs up to one of those drainage green belts with a thin stretch of trees, some old fence lines, and a walking path that loops through it. It's not like a forest or anything, it's just enough space for wildlife to move through. We see deer sometimes, coyote once in a while, nothing really unusual. Not until that night, anyway. This was in early November of 2022. My husband Corey and I were walking our dog Max like we always do after dinner. It was just after 8 p.m. It was cold but not freezing, and the moon was out enough that we didn't need much light. We took our usual path, out the back gate, through the Greenbelt Trail, looped the block, and come back around. We had done this hundreds of times. Now Max is an Australian Shepherd. Extremely smart dog, probably one of the smartest I've ever had. He started acting weird maybe 2 blocks into the walk. Like I said, he's smart, but he's also pretty mellow. He's never been aggressive, ever. But that night he kept stopping every few feet and staring into the trees off the side of the trail. He kept his ears pinned back, but I never heard him growl. I just assumed he smelled an animal. Could be a fox, there's plenty around. But then we heard the sound. This heavy crunching step in the leaves like someone walking through dry brush, but very slowly. It was like whatever or whoever it was being as careful as they could be, trying to be quiet. Then it would stop every time we stopped. Corey swung his flashlight around and caught the briefest flash of something tall ducking behind a clump of trees. This thing wasn't trying to run, it just ducked down, like it didn't want to be seen, but wasn't all that worried if it was. We didn't speak, we both just turned around and started heading home the way we came. Max was pulling hard. He was whining a bit at this point, and the weirdest part, we could hear it following us. It wasn't in the trees, there was no crashing around, just pacing us, always out of sight, just far enough to stay out of the flashlight beam. But it was close enough that we could hear each step echoing our own. When we got to the streetlights, I figured we'd lose whatever it was, but it didn't stop. I turned around, and in the line of the trees, one last time I saw it. Tall, pitch black, crouched just inside the shadows behind our neighbor's fence. It had one hand on the post and the other hanging down. I could see its claws reflecting in the light. Its head looked way too narrow for a bear, more like a massive dog, but angular and alert. It had these yellowish eyes that I never saw blink once. This thing stalked and watched us all the way to our gate. We got inside and locked everything. We tried to calm down. Corey grabbed his pistol from the safe and checked the backyard, but nothing was there. I barely slept. He didn't sleep at all. 3 nights later, Corey took the trash to the curb and came back inside pale as a ghost. He said he saw it again, this time across the street in the neighbor's yard, standing still as a statue under their motion light. When it noticed him, it crouched and crawled backward like a spider out of view. He said this thing just disappeared into the bushes like it wasn't even there. It was so quick he barely saw it. After that, we never saw it again, but Max still won't go near the back fence. We didn't report it. What do you even say? Excuse me, officer, there's a werewolf pacing the trail behind our house. People can roll their eyes if they want, but I saw it, my husband saw it, and if Max could talk, I'm pretty sure he'd say the same thing. We were being hunted. You could feel it. Thanks, Reels. Lisa. My property sits on nothing but trees. I've lived out here about 6 miles outside Dover for the better part of 30 years. And until a couple years ago, I'd never had anything stranger than the occasional trespasser or raccoon in the trash. I'm retired now, but I used to work as a wildlife removal guy, so believe me when I say, I've seen all kinds of animal behavior. Scared animals, sick ones, aggressive ones, even mountain lions once or twice. But nothing like what I saw that night, and I pray I never see it again. And I pray you don't either. This started in mid-December 2021. It was one of those bitter cold snaps where the sky looks silver and you can't even feel your fingers after 10 minutes being outside. I'd gone out to check the trail camera I keep strapped to the tree at the edge of my back clearing. I almost do it for fun just to see what's passing through. Occasionally I'll catch a fox or a bobcat. Once a mama bear and 2 cubs back in 2019. But this time there was something weird on that card. Half the photos were just pitch black, but not in a way that made sense. They weren't triggered by motion, just long strings of shots like something was blocking the lens. And one photo, just one, showed part of a deer carcass half-eaten dragged near the stump about 10 feet from the camera. Its back legs were snapped and most of the belly was missing. I've seen coyotes tear one up before, but this was cleaner, and the stomach had been pulled straight out like something went digging in it. That same evening, I took my flashlight just before dark and went out there to see if the carcass was still around. It was, but now it had been dragged closer to the shed, and it was frozen stiff. There were no clear tracks because of the snowdrift, but I could see a drag trail and what looked like handprints, not paws. On either side of the body, it's like something had grabbed it under the front legs and yanked it. I looked around, and that's when I got the worst gut feeling I've ever had in my life. It was a deep instinct, the one that doesn't have words. It just says, "Get out." And I listened. I turned around and walked back to the house. I didn't run because, yeah, don't do that. I didn't look back either. Do that if you want, but not me. I just made it to the back door, got inside, and locked it. Oh, don't worry. Things are going to get worse. Around 3 in the morning, I heard something on the roof of my shed. I had no idea what would have climbed up there, but it didn't move like you would expect a small rodent, and it sounded really heavy. I cracked open the blinds in my back bedroom and turned off the inside light so I could see out better. There was something sitting on top of the shed. It was squatted on its haunches, arms draped over its knees like a man would sit, except its head was shaped like a damn dog. I could see a long snout. I saw the pointed ears. The silhouette was crystal clear under the moonlight. It wasn't doing anything. It was just staring at the house, which was creepier than anything I could imagine. I froze there for maybe 2 minutes, praying this thing didn't see me. I don't know if it ever did. It never moved, never shifted, never showed any signs if it did see me. Eventually, I just backed out of that room and sit in the kitchen and waited for daylight. When I checked out the next morning, the shed roof was all clawed up on the edges like something had climbed up. And then it looked like something ripped off some shingles as it was jumping up. I took down the trail cam, haven't used it since. I did install some motion-activated lights all over the yard. I cut down a bunch of brush around the back fence and started sleeping with a shotgun next to the bed. I never told my kids, never reported anything to anyone. I do think about it every single night. I sit on my porch and stare at those trees, waiting. I haven't seen it again, but I have a feeling it's still out there somewhere. The way that thing just sat there, like it was studying my house or looking for me. What are these things? It's like this thing had done it before. How many times had it sat out there and stared at my house? Hopefully, that would be the last time it done it. Who knows? Maybe it will again. If I see any more signs or any strange things happen, I'll be the first one to let you know. As of now, all things are quiet here. Take care of yourself and watch your back out there in those mountains. It's a dangerous place. Harley. I drive a lot of back roads, mostly by choice. I work a lot of odd hours, and I usually head home after midnight. It's less traffic, a lot fewer deer, and to tell you the truth, I'm one of those people I just like driving through the open fields. I've lived in Iowa my whole life. I know what's out there. Or, well, at least I used to think I did. But God knows what's out there now. What happened to me last February made me change my entire life. Everything I believed, the way I thought, changed everything. It was after 1 a.m. and I was heading home from a late shift. I was taking one of the gravel cut-throughs between Eldora and Union. Locals will know the one that runs by the old windbreak line before the road dips. There's no lights out there. Just my high beams, that was it. They were cutting through a little haze and that weird kind of snow fog you get when it's under 10 degrees. I'd just crested the hill when something came out of the ditch on the passenger side. It moved so fast I almost didn't catch it. It was just a blur of black fur and motion. At first, I had no idea, but it didn't cross the road, it joined me. I mean that literally. It ran alongside my truck and it stayed there. I was doing 50 miles an hour when I noticed it. I crept up to 55 just to be sure. Whatever it was, it kept pace. I glanced over. Bad decision. That's when I saw it clearly. This thing wasn't on four legs. It was running on two. It was pumping its arms in this unnatural swinging rhythm, not like a person. I can't even explain it. It had this arrow-shaped skinny head, and it reminded me of a German shepherd, just a bit warped. Its shoulders were huge. The arms looked too long, and the hands were curled back as it ran. I could see its eyes in the light just for a second, and it flared this ugly orange color. This thing looked in my window straight at me and made eye contact. I hit 60 and started praying. It stayed with me for another 15 seconds, then veered off into the trees like it was bored. It just peeled away and darted into the bushes. I didn't stop. I mean, who would? I didn't sleep when I got home either. Another reason. Who would? Didn't say a word about it for almost a year. But here's the part that was the worst in my opinion. A couple nights later, the same stretch of road, someone from work hit something and totaled their car. Cops said it was a deer, but they never found a carcass. I asked him what he saw, and he just shook his head and said, "It wasn't a deer. I don't know. I've never seen anything like it." So yeah, I still drive that road, but I've never seen it again. Hopefully that guy that hit it killed the stupid thing. I can only pray. I'm pretty sure it was a Dogman, although who gives these things these names anyway? It wasn't just fast, it was unnaturally fast, almost supernaturally fast. And that's honestly what scares me the most. These things look physical from my story and many others I've heard. But what kind of living, breathing, physical creature can display supernatural agility and speed? These things seem to be from another world. I'm going to stop going on because the more I type, the more crazy I feel. Out of all the theories I've heard and read, in my opinion, these things have some sort of biblical ties. That's just my opinion. Anyways, I love your channel. I love all your videos. I've watched every single upload you've made. You're doing a great job, and I'll be here waiting for more, even if you don't share my encounter. Thanks, Reels. Mickey. I don't tell people this story anymore. I used to try, back when it first happened. Friends, people I worked with, even a few of my family members, but either they laughed or gave me that look, the one that says, "You need help." So I just stopped talking about it altogether. But I still think about it every time I go near the woods, which isn't very often anymore. This happened in the spring of 2018. I was living just outside of Dahlonega, up in the hills past Yahula Creek. There's this network of trails that loops around the ridge behind the reservoir. I'd walk it 3 or 4 times a week to clear my head after work. I'd always go right before sundown, while there was still light, but nobody else was out there. It was my routine. That's what makes this worse. It didn't happen out in some forbidden place that I wasn't supposed to be. It was a spot that I knew by heart, a place where I felt safe and comfortable. This thing stole that from me. That evening started normal. A little bit of wind, sky starting to turn orange. I was maybe 20 minutes into the loop when I heard something that stopped me dead in my tracks. I heard laughter. Except it wasn't laughter, not really. It started like a person laughing, high-pitched, and then it just kept going, like someone trying to fake a laugh, but couldn't figure out when you're supposed to stop. It echoed weird. It bounced in this unnatural way, like it was too close and too far at the same time. I know how crazy that sounds, but that's the only way I can explain it. I turned around expecting to see some dumb teenager trying to scare hikers. Nothing but trees. That's when I noticed how quiet it had gotten in that moment. The birds were gone, the wind had stopped. It was just that fake, broken laughter somewhere ahead of me now. That was the only sound I heard, besides the ringing in my ears and my heart beating out of my chest. I turned off the trail and started cutting down toward the creek. I figured I'd loop around and come out by a service road. I've never moved so fast in my life without running. I started seeing eyes. At first, I thought this was just a reflection or some kind of trick of the light. 2 points of bluish glow, maybe a reflection from the last bit of daylight. But then I saw them blink. They were only about chest height off the ground, not high like an owl in a tree, low, down in the brush, staring up at me without flinching. When I stepped back, that's when it moved. Whatever it was, it stood up slowly. It went from chest height to towering over the brush in one fluid motion. The eyes never left me. It didn't make any sounds. I didn't hear any breathing, no growling. I just had this awful feeling like I'd just locked eyes with something that was about to end me. Something that's not even supposed to be real. It looked like a dog, or maybe something trying to be a dog. But its legs were too long and bent back at the knees the wrong way. Its neck was too upright. The shoulders were narrow but jutted out like it had no collarbones, and the head tilted sideways like it didn't understand what it was looking at. Then this thing laughed again. Not a person this time, just this broken, wet cough that mimicked laughter. I turned and ran at that point. My brain just broke. I was in a full sprint. I didn't even care if it chased me. If it was going to kill me, I was going to die tired. I couldn't look at this thing any longer. I just needed to get away, to get out. I busted out of the woods at the trailhead and dove into my truck without ever looking back to see if it's there. I didn't go back there for over a year, and when I did, it was in the middle of the day and I never left the main path. I know people say Dogman stories sound too crazy to be real, that they don't mimic voices or sounds. But I'm telling you now, I'm not lying. This one did. It laughed. It definitely knew how to mimic human sounds. I think these things feed off of fear. The thing could have got me at multiple points and chose not to. I think they want to scare the hell out of us for some weird reason. It definitely scared me. It proved its point and got what it wanted. Anyway, that's my encounter. I'm hoping to hear it on the channel soon. Thanks, Reels. I've worked commercial construction most of my life. I've poured slabs in 20-degree weather. I've climbed beams in 100-degree heat. And I've stayed on job sites long after everyone else went home. You do it long enough, you get used to the weird sounds out there. Settling steel, snapping plywood, echoes from down the hill. But this wasn't any of that. I can tell you this wasn't normal. It was 2 years ago, just outside of Potlatch, Idaho. We were framing out a prefab structure for a regional seed company. It was just a metal outbuilding going up on a gravel lot near the edge of a forest line, middle of nowhere. No neighbors in sight, no lights anywhere, except the ones we brought. That day we were behind schedule, so most of the guys cleared out around 5:30, but I stayed back an extra half hour to finish stacking the scrap and chaining down the gang box. I had my radio off and the sun had already dipped behind the trees. That's when all hell started. In the beginning, it was the first thing I noticed was how quiet it got. Not just a little quiet, I mean completely silent. Even the usual creak of the metal stopped, like the air itself was just waiting. I heard something move across the roof beams. The building wasn't fully enclosed yet, just a steel frame, roof panels half installed. Something stepped across the top. There was no skittering like a raccoon, no flapping like a bird. This was something big as hell, and it was on 2 feet, measured and slow. Instead of getting out of there, my dumbass stepped back and looked up. I didn't see anything. Then I heard what sounded like nails drag across the paneling. It was like someone sharpening claws or testing the surface. I didn't move. At that point, I don't even think I was breathing. I finally yelled out, thinking maybe someone stayed behind to try and prank me. I got no answer. I started heading toward the job trailer. I was about halfway there when something dropped down from the back side of the structure and landed hard on the gravel. Now, don't make any mistakes and get confused here. This wasn't a slip or a fall. This was definitely like something jumped. You know that sound. When something big hits loose rock and settles its weight. That crunch and then the shift. I turned and caught just a glimpse of it before it ducked behind a stack of OSB. Tall SOB, black, arms long enough to hang past its knees. Its head shaped like a dog's, but long, really long in the snout. More like a Doberman than a wolf, if I was describing it properly. Its back had a big hump on it, but it moved smoothly. It looked like it was used to sneaking. I bolted for the truck, got in, and sat there with the engine running and my hand on the horn just waiting for it to show itself again. It didn't. I'm so crazy that I actually wanted to see it again. I was mesmerized. I came back the next morning, brought the whole crew, told the foreman someone had tried to break in. We walked around the perimeter, found a long scratch down one of the wall panels like someone took a knife to it. He didn't say a word, he just looked at me and said, "Stack your tools in the trailer. We're hiring a night guard." I knew it damn sure wasn't going to be me. They brought someone in the next night. He quit after one shift. Never spoke a word to anyone about why. Just didn't show up. I've worked dozens of sites since then. Some rougher than that one, but I never stay late much anymore. And you can take this as the gospel. If I'm out there and I hear a single sound come from above me after dark, I'm gone. Appreciate the time. And thanks for replying to my email. Much appreciated. B.C. Back in 2019, I was renting a beat-up little house with two other guys while finishing my degree at Eastern Michigan University. The place was cheap, which should have been the first red flag. Old windows, creaky floors, motion lights that never hardly worked. But hey, it had a backyard and wasn't a dorm, so we took it. The house backed up to this narrow wooded strip between subdivisions. We called it the Belt Line, like it was some fancy trail system, but it was just a patch of brush and trash trees maybe 50 feet wide, not a forest, not even in the slightest. Not really even a trail, if I'm telling the truth. But there was a worn down path through it like people had cut through over the years. Our back fence was just a warped wooden privacy fence, maybe 6 feet tall and leaning in spots. But it did give us some separation from that patch of woods. At least we thought it did. One night in late October, the three of us were in the living room watching a movie around 11 p.m. We started hearing these weird thumps in the backyard. It wasn't extremely loud, but it was sharp enough to make all of us pause. Then we heard the gate start creaking. Now, we kept that gate locked. We weren't in a rough area or anything, but there were stories. Weirdos walking through the greenbelt, tents found in the brush, stuff like that. So when we heard the gate creak and then slam shut, all of us stood up at once. My buddy Rich grabbed one of those big mag light flashlights and headed to the back door. The motion light didn't come on, of course. I followed behind him, while our third roommate stayed by the front just in case it was a distraction or something nefarious. Rich opened the door, stepped out onto the porch, and shined the light toward the fence. At first, we didn't see anything. As he scanned around, there was nothing. Out of nowhere, something just came over the fence. It didn't climb it, it didn't jump over it, it just came over. Like it had one hand on top and one foot up, and it just leaned over the top like it was dropping in from above, like someone casually stepping down off a ledge. Rich backed up so fast he almost fell into me. The flashlight jerked, but we still got a good look. This thing was way taller than any human could possibly be. Easily, I'm guessing 8 to 9 feet. And when it landed, the size of it, you would expect to hear a thump, but it landed light, almost didn't make a sound. It's like it didn't weigh what it should have. The shape of this thing was definitely peculiar. Wrong, I would say. The torso was long, but the legs were too bent, almost digitigrade, like a dog's hind legs. Its arms were long as hell, and the head was shaped like a wolf. No other way to say it. Long snout, ears, black all over. It didn't have glowing eyes, though. But we didn't need them. We knew what we were looking at. It took a few steps forward, kind of slowly, but still made no noise. Just smooth motion like it was used to stalking. Rich slammed the door shut and locked it, like that would stop this thing. We backed into the kitchen, and for a few seconds, none of us said a word. We just stood there. Out of nowhere, we hear this scrape. One long, dry scrape across the back window. Sound like someone dragging a roofing nail across the glass. We didn't even move from the kitchen until the sky started to lighten up outside, and I still wasn't comfortable even in daylight. Nobody said the word werewolf. Nobody said dogman until weeks later when I started researching online, but that's definitely what it was. We moved out that winter. The landlord never said anything or gave us any problems. I'm pretty sure they already knew. Having a dogman encounter in Michigan? Who would have thought, huh? Appreciate it, Reels. You're a good dude. Keep making it happen and keep living the dream, brother. Name redacted. Legends. This last one is insane. I don't think I've ever heard an encounter story quite like this. I had to share it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Submitted by Sean Armstrong, somewhere outside Tonopah, Nevada. I was never the type of person to hitchhike, not because of horror stories or anything. I just like being in control, and it is a little dangerous. But in 2015, my truck broke down about 30 miles east of Tonopah, out in the middle of BFE. Yeah, we all know what that means. And cell service? Forget it. It was early evening, I had no flashlight, and I'd already walked a couple miles when I finally saw headlights coming up behind me. It was an old beat-up conversion van, the kind with the weird curtains in the back windows and mismatched hubcaps. You know, the kind you probably shouldn't get into. I figured I'd rather take my chances than spend the night with coyotes and God knows what else in the desert, so I stuck my thumb out. The guy pulled over and leaned across the passenger seat. He looked normal enough, a little older than me, wearing a ball cap and a flannel shirt, beard trimmed short. Didn't give me any weird vibes, he just said, "Where are you headed?" I told him anywhere with a phone. He waved me in. We made some small talk as we drove, but he didn't say a whole lot. The road was empty. I never saw another car anywhere, just miles of flat scrub and low hills off in the distance. I remember checking the dashboard clock. It was just after 9 p.m. That's when he slowed down and started squinting through the windshield. He said, "Do you see that?" And at first I did not. Then I spotted it. Something standing in the road up ahead about 100 feet out, right in the beams of the high beams. I thought it was a deer at first, but it didn't move. It just stood there. It wasn't scared at all. Most animals will run from cars and headlights. This one stood tall, proud, and still. As we got closer, I realized it was standing on two legs. The guy slowed to a crawl, and we both leaned forward to get a better look. What we saw stopped that van and our hearts in its tracks. It looked like a wolf, if wolves had long, thick torsos, arms like a linebacker, and hands that hung down past the knees. Its fur was black, shoulders rounded forward like it was hunched up in the cold, but its legs, man, the legs were bent backward, like a damn dog. You ever see a horse or a dog standing real still? How their back legs lock just a little? That's what it looked like, but on a man's body. The eyes reflected red in the headlights. The snout was long, and it had its mouth slightly open, like it was breathing heavy. Or even worse, some people say they're smiling, and I can definitely get that because it kinda did look like it was smiling. It turned toward us, took a slow step to one side, and out of nowhere this thing charged. Thank God my Uber driver had some balls because he floored it. The van rocked hard as he whipped around this thing. I looked out my window as we passed it, and I saw it right beside us. Actually beside us, keeping up with the van at 50 miles per hour. No problem. It slammed its hand against the side panel with a sound like metal denting under a hammer. I couldn't help it. I screamed. The guy swerved again, nearly put us into a ditch. By the time we leveled out, the thing was gone. It just vanished. We didn't speak a word for a solid 5 minutes. I just sat there staring out the windshield, not knowing what to say or to do or to think. I was just focusing on trying to breathe because my chest was so tight. Eventually, the guy spoke up and said, "That wasn't the first time." I looked over at him, wondering what the hell he meant. He wouldn't meet my eyes either. He just stared ahead and said, "It followed me once." I've never told anybody. and no one else has ever seen it until now. This thing has been after me for weeks. I've seen it. That makes 5 times. We made it to the truck stop an hour later. I awkwardly thanked him, wished him luck, got out, and never saw him again. I haven't never told anybody this until now. I didn't tell my buddies back home. I just kept it in my head like a splinter that just never healed. I really hope that guy's okay, but I've never hitchhiked again and I wouldn't recommend it. What's the chances of getting in a vehicle with someone marked and being hunted by a damn dogman? I don't even like long drives at night anymore. Out there in the middle of the desert, in the places people forget about, there are things that still roam out there, and they are not scared of us. Of that I can promise you. Anonymous. Friends, legends, family, thank you all once again for spending part of your night here with me. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. And to those of you who were kind enough to send in these encounters tonight, you have my full respect and appreciation. It takes a lot of guts to remember and revisit something like this, and I do not take that lightly. Thank you for trusting me to narrate these encounters. Tonight's stories were wild, to say the least, especially that last one. What are the chances? My God, that guy has luck worse than mine, and that's pretty bad. These are reminders that not everything out there wants to hurt us, I guess. But I still don't trust these creatures, no matter how many of these encounters I hear where they're helpful or not aggressive. I know what I saw, and what I saw was not a teddy bear, and it's not to be trusted. Sometimes the most dangerous things are the ones that don't chase you. They're waiting for you to make a mistake. So please, if you enjoyed tonight's encounters, go ahead and hit the like button, leave a comment, share, and if you haven't subscribed already, I'd be honored to have you join the family. Don't forget that notification bell so you'll always know when a new upload drops. Above all else, everyone please, legends, be smart out there. If you're going into the woods, don't pack lightly. Take protection. Pack aware. Pay attention to your surroundings. Watch for any drops in forest sounds, any silence that shows up out of nowhere. Don't ever ignore your gut feelings or your instincts. If you feel something weird that you just can't explain, your instinct is there to keep you alive. Don't ever ignore it. If you see something watching from the distance, again, don't try to get closer. Don't try to get a picture. Don't try to investigate. We're not superheroes. And your picture or video, whatever you capture, won't be out there. It'll never surface because you won't be here to upload it. I want proof, pictures, video, evidence. I want answers, the same as all of you. But please, it's not worth your safety. Most importantly, your life. Well, now that I've gave all of you adults the dad talk, that's going to do it for this one. Everyone stay safe out there. I hope you're blessed beyond measure. I love you guys. Take care of yourselves. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.